Hi, this is Eric Dickerson, NFL Hall of Famer, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the show. What are you doing over there, man?
I was just waiting. It's called suspense, Mike. Deal with it.
No, that's called people think there's a problem with the podcast.
No, they don't.
I did. What's going wrong? Everything's different.
Are you okay over there?
Yeah, I'm doing great. We played
withstanding victories.
Yeah, we played some basketball this morning in this 2017, the Year of Health. Hey, Foot Clan, get on the Year of Health with us.
Yeah.
Let's just make this a thing for everybody, and you can all get healthy this year. But we played some basketball, and I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired too.
You don't seem very tired, though.
I'm doing all right. I mean, I was about to start the show until this hooligan jumped in.
Well, I mean, I don't know why he's here.
What an intro. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy, Mike, and Jason back again. It's Thursday, January 26th, and we welcome you in to the studio with us as we talk fantasy football. We've got the 25 statistics because I see that article is coming out today on tight ends. This show is about tight ends.
KD.
Yeah, by KD. Kevin Durant writes for us on the website. No, we have an article today on the truth about fantasy tight ends. I find this to be maybe the more interesting of positions to discuss because, you know, it wasn't as interesting to discuss the first 3 or 4 running backs. But the first 3 or 4 tight ends, you don't know
Man.
Up from down.
I do.
Top from bottom.
I am so angry at one of these tight ends, but we'll get into it.
You hold a grudge.
I hold it well.
We have a.
I couldn't remember.
We'll get into it.
I figured it out.
If you want to follow this show and all that's going on with the Fantasy Footballers, you can do so on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can join our fantasy community at jointhefoot.com. Help support the show. Check out the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. We're also on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, everywhere you want to be. All right, quick question of the day comes from Matt Maple. He says, who's the best candidate for a breakout or return to form next year? Look, it's January 26th, gentlemen, but give me an early breakout return to form candidate for the 2017 fantasy football season.
Ooh. All right. Well, I can go with a bounce back, a guy that I think looked all right. The problem was his quarterback was atrocious this year, and that quarterback genuinely might have had a shoulder problem all year. I'm going to say that Allen Robinson, a footy favorite 2 years ago, who really disappointed people this year, and I think people are going to drop too low on Allen Robinson the following year. That's usually what happens. We swing the pendulum too far. I think he has a chance to come back, certainly have a better year than this past year. I trust I trust the fact that Blake Bortles could come back and be a decent fantasy quarterback next year far more than, say, DeAndre Hopkins and Brock Osweiler. I don't think Brock has the ability. We've seen Blake Bortles do it. I think there are reasons, including the offensive coordinator change, to give me hope in that Jacksonville offense.
I carry much of the same vein as you do with my candidate. Both of ours are return to form candidates, so to speak. I'm going with Sammy Watkins. You know, this year, number 92 on the wide receiver ranks. Obviously, most of it was plagued with injuries. I like candidates for breakout/return to form when they've done it before, when we've seen it with our own eyes, when you know the talent is there, and Watkins and Robinson both are elite talent at the wide receiver position. So I believe Watkins. I'm gonna assume health at this point in time.
Yeah, it's a little dangerous with you have the another foot injury, another foot surgery. Or not another foot, but a repeated foot injury, and you have some.
Yeah, we would have given him a footy, but we didn't want to bring up anything that would make him feel bad.
Keep those away.
I'm going with one that's a little. You got to follow the narrative street a little bit.
Okay.
Right. So this isn't just plug and play. I'm going to bring up Jordan Matthews.
I almost put him in.
Jordan Matthews,
because he was so low this year.
I think is a good wide receiver.
I agree.
I think he played out of his position. And I
don't think he's just a dude?
No, I do not think he's just a dude. I don't necessarily think that he is elite, but I think that he has a skill set that can grow. And he was one of those guys where, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but his rookie year, I mean, he had excellent hands.
He did. He sure did. He was great wide receiver. Set a bunch of rookie records.
But then you saw him last year that was plagued by some drops. Like I said, playing out of position. You have Carson Wentz, another year of growth from him. He showed some at times that he can turn into a competent quarterback. I also believe that the Eagles will not enter into next year with their wide receiver core looking anything like it looked towards the end of last year. There will be an overhaul. You have those Deshaun Jackson rumors of returning back to Philadelphia. If not, I think they will draft someone or sign someone else from free agency who is an outside type receiver. Let Jordan Matthews return to what he does in the slot. So I think that he could end up being a draft day value.
The thing about Jordan Matthews' his first 2 years is that he was an 8-touchdown guy in both seasons. This year, he averaged a touchdown every 24 receptions with Carson Wentz, which was almost dead last out of all qualified wide receivers. So that was one of those things that you didn't see this year. That, he's never been a 1,000-yard receiver. And so if he doesn't get the yardage up and he stays in the slot, I don't know if the ceiling's there without, the touchdown numbers. I don't know if you need to think of Jordan Matthews as, Edelman light as his ceiling or not.
He was at 997 last year or 2 years ago. So to call him not 1,000 yards,
didn't get there, Mike.
It is the truth, but
Melvin Gordon has also never rushed for 1,000 yards.
Well, it's just look. Yeah, I didn't say he had a bad year. I said he had an 8-touchdown year. That's normally high from the slot position, and so if he stays in the slot, which he seems to be, his only year with Carson Wentz was this past year. So he's I agree with you. He's a bounce back candidate, no doubt about it.
Also missed 2 games. Finished with over 800 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he is a guy who I think that people are going to write off.
As Carson Wentz grows and gets better, which I think we all expect he will improve, it's only going to be better for Jordan Matthews. Makes sense.
All right, let's get into the truth.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
All right, let's get into the truth at the tight end position in 2016. It was an interesting year at the tight end position.
The year of barf.
Barf.
We did, yeah. There were many barfy tight ends. There was a lot of hope. A lot of athletes at the tight end position conjure up so much hope because you've seen great years. You've seen Julius Thomas break out in the preseason and become a 12, 13 touchdown guy for Denver. You have seen breakout type of players, and then you've seen disappointments. You've seen the Eric Ebrons, who you just kind of the engine never gets started.
Yeah,
you just can't get him into that upper echelon. And so this year, I'm not sure what to make of it. This will be a good discussion because look, we're looking at the consistency of these guys versus their ranking, and if there's any position that having some consistency at is valuable, is a difference maker, it's the tight end position.
And let me just say this, because while we were looking at these numbers and putting this show together, I completely agree with Andy. Consistency is really what, other than touchdowns, consistency is king for tight ends. You want to be able to not have that 0 or 2 point game. And Mike and I decided on our own, like, if you score less than 6 points, less than 6 fantasy points in a half-point system, that's a complete dud. Like, you have hurt your team. And looking through this, I saw one of the most consistent guys, one of the guys tied for most consistent, and I was like, no way.
It's not possible.
Not possible. He stunk.
Yeah, we'll talk about him shortly. You bring up a point though. Like every position we've looked at, and so if you go back to our previous episodes, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and the running backs, there has been a player on the list that has not busted, right? Has given you consistency throughout the season. That's not the case at the tight end position. There are no tight ends on the board at all that haven't had at least 2 complete bust games as defined by not finishing in the top 21 at the position.
Well, and I can tell you why that happened, because if you look at all the other positions, the guys that had no busts, they were one of the best, right? They were the first or the second or the third best at their position. Well, the number one guy, the guy we're going to start talking about here, Travis Kelce, who finished number one, he would have, had he scored the same amount of fantasy points this year as last year, he would not have been a top 6 tight end. He would have been the 7th best tight end last year.
Tease that out a little bit, because I don't know if people understand what happened at the tight end position in 2016.
What it means is that there were truly no elite, great tight ends this year that front to back the whole season got it done. Greg Olsen had that amazing first half. Travis Kelce had the amazing second half. But as a whole this season, no one, there was not one single guy who really did take the cake. I mean, last year you had Delanie Walker. Delanie Walker last year was great and consistent the whole year. He was the 5th best tight end last year, and he scored more last year than the number one did this year. So this year we were really missing that top end. Now, I wanted to look, is this across all tight ends, or is it, just the top? And it really is just the top, because if you look at the 12th place finish at tight end, which is grossly my boy Coby Fleener, if you go back over the last 5 years, basically the number 12 guy was about the same as it was last year. However, the last 5 years, the number 12 has consistently just dropped a little bit, like 2 points less each year. And so the trend seems to be kind of tight ends just becoming less and less critical.
So, that begged the question for me. If what you're saying is true, right, there was no elite tight end, is it fair to say anybody who spent any draft capital on tight end last year wasted a pick? Any high draft capital, it was a complete and unadulterated waste.
I wouldn't say it was a waste.
If you drafted Kelce at 55, you're okay.
I think that's fine. I mean,
would you have had him on your team still halfway through the year?
I think you would have. I mean, he started fine. In his first 4 games in a half-point scoring, he had 3 double-digit performances. It was the middle of the season where you thought, oh, crap. Here we go. They're not going to use Kelce. You had 3 catches, 2 catches. Then you had the explosion again, 7 for 101, week 8 against Indianapolis, and then back down to earth before the Macklin injury, and Kelce really took off.
All right, let's climb through the tight ends. And Travis Kelce was 85 for 1,125 yards and 4 touchdowns, had 117 targets, and like we said, number 1 in half-point leagues. Number 1 in the consistency rankings in standard leagues. He had 2 top 2 performances and 9 top 10 performances. Played well against top 16 tight end defenses with 12.7 points per game.
Actually better.
Yeah, better than he did against bad defenses. Yeah, 3 points better. So very good year for Travis Kelce. Let's talk about number 2. Kyle Rudolph ended up the number 2 tight end. Ho-hum, went to work, grabbed his lunch pail, put on his hard hat, and each and every week.
And his shiny red nose.
Yeah, and his shiny red nose. And every week. 16 games.
Yeah, in my opinion, Kyle Rudolph, we have 3 guys tied. We use, we've been using the formula that Tristan Cockcroft. Yes, thank you. Has come up with and has done for many years over at ESPN. In my opinion, looking at the 3 that were tied for first place in consistency, which is Travis Kelce, Kyle Rudolph, and Greg Olsen, Kyle Rudolph, I believe, was the most consistent. He actually only had 3 games under that 6 points in a half-point scoring, and he was so important to what Sam Bradford was doing. Kyle Rudolph, I think, was probably your best spent tight end pick this year.
Well, he was an undrafted player.
He was a waiver
guy. Absolutely right. Compared to, Olsen went at 41, Kelce was 55. 55. Kyle Rudolph played a little bit. He only had 1 top 2 performance, so he didn't give you those like otherworldly type of weeks, but he was very consistent. And look, 132 targets. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that led the way amongst all tight ends.
What I love about Kyle Rudolph is you have the 83 receptions for 840 yards. As compared to Travis Kelce, was 85 receptions for 1,125 yards.
Very different players.
There's a reason that Sam Bradford led the league in history in accuracy, because he threw the ball about 2 feet.
Rudolph was, in a lot of ways, the Jason Witten of of yesteryear.
Of what?
Of lore?
Of
your.
Oh, yeah. So, look, Kyle Rudolph, number 2, most consistent. I think a lot of his value and staying in this spot, depends on the quarterback position.
Yep,
next year.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Who is the quarterback next year to start for the Minnesota Vikings? They gave up a lot for Sam Bradford. You have to assume they gave that up because there was great concerns. So you remember that Teddy Bridgewater guy? Just a reminder, Teddy Bridgewater was set to start. He was one of the growing up-and-coming young quarterbacks. Went down in training camp with a horrific injury from all reports, and we don't know if he will be ready to go.
I think most things that I read from the beat writers out of that area is that Sam Bradford will probably be the quarterback next year, just because it's all dependent on Bridgewater's health. But I will say this: if Sam Bradford is the quarterback next year, I agree with you, Andy. That's what determines whether or not Kyle Rudolph is a valuable fantasy option.
Or just a guy you
stream on good matchups. And I think Kyle Rudolph will be a mighty fine pick next year.
Well, we need to move on to your favorite player in football, Greg Olsen. And I have my theories on this discussion, and Jason was alluding to the fact that, look, Greg Olsen showed up, according to that methodology that we talked about, as the most consistent tight end. He had 9 top 10 performances, 3 top 2 performances, over 1,000 yards, only 3 touchdowns on a very bad year for the Panthers, where Newton struggled, the offense struggled. Obviously, the touchdown numbers weren't there. And realistically, he put up a lot more yards against bad defenses.
Now, the first tight end ever with 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Am I remembering that correctly?
No, that's
correct.
Ever in the NFL history.
And Jason hates this man.
No,
And
look.
I have an argument for you. But
here's what
say
happened.
your piece.
Here's what happened. We were putting this show together, and I saw that he was tied for most consistent. And I went, what? There's no way that this guy who bombed the second half of the year can, if he did the whole first half of the year, great. And then the whole second of the year was terrible. That's really inconsistent to me. So I'm arguing against Mike that he does not belong there. We need to fix this. And I start looking through the numbers, and we start counting. How many times was he below 6? How many times was he above 10? How many times and we start looking and comparing against other tight ends. Look, Greg Olsen was not consistent, but he was more consistent than the other tight ends. That's how bad tight ends were this year. So I've got to say, Greg Olsen, you had an excellent year as a whole.
I had this
still better than
I'm looking at his game log here. And I had this contention in my head that the reason you hated Greg Olsen was because owning him at the beginning of the year was like driving a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And then you had to drop down into like your 1994 Accord. Whereas if you had some other tight end, you wouldn't have noticed the drop off. But I look at this, he wasn't very consistent.
No, I know. That's what I mean.
He had 3 double-digit games from week 8 on.
I know.
That's terrible.
It's terrible.
Especially-
And what I'm saying,
And he
is
didn't score from week 10 on.
from week 10 on, no scores. From week 7 on, 3 double-digit performances. It was terrible. And what I am saying is, when I went and compared to,
still was more
it was
consistent.
still better than other tight ends. That's just
Expectations.
Stop drafting tight ends high. Stream the position next year, and
I'm going to tell you
I'm
right
gonna
now.
use my third to last pick on a tight end.
This show is all about having more fun playing fantasy football and winning, right? Putting those 2 pieces together. I can tell you from experience, it's more fun to do the research, listen to the podcast, do your own homework, and take a flyer on Cameron Brate or Zach Ertz, or a couple of years ago it was Julius Thomas. Maybe next year it's going to be Ebron or Hunter Henry. Whoever it is, it's more fun to hit on that guy late in the draft with nothing on the line than it is to draft Travis Kelce in the 3rd round, be pot committed to starting him on your roster, because that's what happens. Yeah. You are stuck. You spend early draft capital on a tight end. That person, you might as well put a little lock sign on the roster spot on ESPN when you put him into this spot, because you're not moving him out of there.
And
How many weeks has to go by before you're disappointed enough to move in Hunter Henry off the waiver wire?
You remember all the questions about Olsen. It was, what do I do with Olsen?
Oh, yeah. This is going to be the week he comes back. Jason said it all half of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why he hates it. That's why Jason made me print out a 36 by 24 canvas print to put on our bathroom door at the studio.
You mean on our Greg Olsen room?
Yeah.
You're the worst.
We got one bathroom named Jeff Fisher, and the other one's going to be Greg Olsen dates to Jason.
Yeah, no, thanks to Greg Olsen. But here's what I'll say. So looking through that and me saying I'm going to pretty much spend my third to last pick on a tight end, streaming the position, if we look at the consistency, which is there is none, if you look at that, what that means is that you will perform better playing off of waivers. Not that you can perform the same. I'm not making the contention that, look, you don't have to spend high draft capital and you can get the same. I'm saying if you stream off of waivers, you will do better than just taking one of these guys, plugging them in, and every matchup playing them, because everybody did good against the Browns last year.
Right.
Everybody does good against certain teams. Grab the guy that's playing against him, and you will have more consistency in your lineup. Stream tight ends.
That may be the trumpet that we blow all off season.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about Jimmy Graham. Mike, I want a diary entry from you, but before we go into Jimmy Graham, we have to thank Pristine Auction for sponsoring the show. Absolutely love pristineauction.com. I was on there today, just the homepage. Now, they have hundreds of daily sports memorabilia auctions. Just on the homepage, you could grab a Dak Prescott jersey, and on the same page, a Jim Brown jersey. You grab a Julio Jones autographed jersey. There was a Mike Tyson autographed glove in this framed case.
But Andy,
Yeah?
aren't those like $10,000?
Wrong. Voice of
Wrong-o.
public opinion. Pristine Auction has hundreds of daily auctions. You can get a great deal. You will get a great deal if you go to Pristine Auction. And each and every day is a different adventure going on there, seeing the unique products. I haven't got it yet. I'm still on the hunt for that signed Marty McFly guitar.
Oh, I've seen them.
I know. I see it on there too. So I want to grab one of those for the studio at some point. So check them out, pristineauction.com, Pristine auction.com. Free to sign up and browse and check out the auctions. Let them know the footballers sent you.
Yeah, and we also want to make sure that we thank a great sponsor of the show, Casper. Casper mattresses. They're the best mattresses out there. They are obsessed about engineering a great mattress. Andy, you have one.
I have one, and I just had a listener DM me on Twitter and said, okay, is this mattress really good? And I said, yeah, we sleep.
Genuinely.
My wife and I sleep on it every single night. We don't just say that and then sleep on a bad mattress. It's a great mattress.
The problem with all mattresses is sometimes they're too hard, sometimes they're too soft. This is obsessively engineered to be that perfect mattress that you're always wanting. Time Magazine said it was one of the best inventions of 2015.
Year of health.
The year of health. Get a good night's rest. And here's the cool thing with Casper. You can try Casper for 100 nights risk-free in your own home. If you don't love it, they're going to pick it up and refund you everything. Casper understands the importance of truly sleeping on a mattress before you commit. So here's what you do. Go to casper.com/footballers, and you can get $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/footballers and using the offer code footballers. Make sure you go there today and sleep better tonight.
That's great. All right. Look, I'm forcing a diary entry from Mike here because I've been known to have a bad memory, but certain things stand out to me. Like the entire offseason when Mike was frequently, vehemently opposed to the Jimmy Graham comeback. And so Jimmy Graham's the number 4 tight end. So that's all I need to say before I hit the button.
Okay.
You start by saying, Dear Diary.
Dear Diary, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. I doubted a man. I questioned what he could do. His name is Jimmy Graham. He is a tight end in the NFL. He suffered a catastrophic injury where his kneecap removed into his upper thigh region. And I doubted that he could return because everyone who's had that injury stinks. But you are the one. You are the shining star who was able to get it done. Welcome back to health. Welcome back to Fantasy Relevance, Jimmy Graham. It is good to have you back, my friend. I've won many championships with you. You were on a different team, and you were better back then.
And yet so many question marks remain for Jimmy Graham because he certainly was back-ish. But that's the tail of the tape for the tight end position this year. It's just not good enough. It's just not enough. Where would Jimmy Graham have been last year?
I will look
Top
that up.
12? Is he in the top 12?
Yeah, he would have been, because the number 12 this year was about the same scoring as number 12 last year.
65 catches, 923 yards, 6 touchdowns. He seemed to ebb and flow a little bit with the reemergence of Tyler Lockett and then the injury of Tyler Lockett. But then you have Paul Richardson that burst onto the scene towards the end of the year. You have Thomas Rawls that came back and was actually playing well towards the end of the year.
He would have been 7th. What's interesting is all the top guys
are about the same point.
All of them this season would have been after 6 and before 7.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, basically last year we had a better top 6.
Yeah, you had Jordan Reed last year, Gronkowski, Greg Olsen had a monster year last year.
Delaney
Walker had a monster year. So Jimmy Graham, where do you guys see him next year? He was the 4th most consistent, which fits with his ranking. He had 4 dud games, played better against worse tight end defenses. Do you like him in the top 6 next year?
Yeah, I like Jimmy Graham to finish well next year. Based on what we were just touting about streaming the position, I won't be drafting him because he will be drafted higher. But I do expect that he will finish higher. I mean, he's probably going to finish as a top 4 tight end next year. We saw Russell Wilson having immense problems the first half of the year. And you also have the injury where you're going to be better 2 years after that injury than immediately after. You saw him missing a lot of practice this year. So I think Jimmy Graham has a good year next year, but will be too high to draft.
Jimmy Graham is in many ways, opposite of Kyle Rudolph. He was the number 1 in terms of yards per reception at the tight end position. Over 14 yards per reception. He was the number 2 in terms of yards per target. So he's downfield. We know what Jimmy Graham does. He gets those downfield targets, and so to me, that represents some big game potential because it takes one big tight end play to outscore your opponent. So, what is he next year? I think he'll be a part of the offense.
I think he's a middle tight end 1.
Yeah.
Which I don't draft guys who I think, he's going to be right in the middle.
Right.
I go Ricky Bobby.
Right.
If you're not first, you're last, and that's all I care about. I either want the guy who I think is a locked and loaded top 3 guy, but more often than not, that draft capital is too much. Or I wait until and then I start picking at the bottom, do the streaming.
Yeah. In terms of, he wasn't up there with the top targeted per game type of players. Like, Rudolph was more than 8 targets per game. Olsen still more than 8 targets per game. And the guy we're going to talk about in a minute, Zach Ertz, was well above him as well. So Delanie Walker finished number 5. What do you think fantasy owners are left with Delanie Walker? 65 catches, 800 yards, 7 touchdowns.
He missed a few games, right?
Missed one game. Had a few busts, had some top 10 games, and was much better against much. And he had a big disparity between how he played against great tight end defenses and poor ones. But you have a maturing quarterback. You have a changing offense. You have a run-dependent offense. And, Walker seems very vanilla, but maybe that's who I want to end up with next year.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where he's going to go in the draft. He's 32 years old now, so he's certainly not getting any younger, but he is the number 1 target on that offense. So we'll have to see if they draft any.
Was he? Was he again?
Look into that. I'm not.
Didn't we make some kind of bet about Delanie Walker numbers before the season? The Foot Clan probably knows that. I'm going to take a little gander while you guys talk about him because I feel like we made like a bet where I thought Delanie Walker would. I don't know.
It's probably a Rashard Matthews bet since we are part of that truther wagon.
Yeah, and also Rashard Matthews is very good. But going forward, Delanie Walker, if he doesn't lead them in targets, he's certainly one of the most important reads. He is that first read on third and on every third down. He was second in targets.
Yes, behind
Rashard Matthews. So, I expect them to draft another good wide receiver or bring in another wide receiver. I feel like they need that. I feel like they're done with the Kendall Wright experiment.
Yes.
But Delanie Walker will be used. If he can fall deep in drafts, I like him. But I think he's a streaming type of guy. He had a lot of duds. What are you laughing at? You found it?
Maybe.
Tajay Sharp.
Oh, yes.
It's Tajay Sharp versus Walker, isn't it?
Oh, man, Andy's embarrassed. Yes. Oh,
That looked so good for a week.
Oh, man. I destroyed you on that. Was that me and you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Water coming your way.
So, to be fair, Tajay Sharp had 83 targets to Delanie Walker's 102.
Really? That was how close it was? I thought I got blown out of the water on that one.
Well, about 20 targets is a pretty good
thought
victory.
Tajay Sharp had about 12 targets after the beginning of the year. I loved it. I searched the water bets for Walker, and the first thing that comes up is Andy Sharp, Jason Walker for most receptions.
I'm glad you remembered that, Andy.
Oh, it was receptions. It wasn't targets.
Oh, well, then it's a bigger disparity.
Oh, no, it was receptions, yeah.
Okay, it's still Walker.
Sure. I have conceded that with my despairing hands in my palms.
You should have done receptions DeMarco Murray versus Tajay Sharp, because Murray won that one too.
All right, Zach Ertz, number 6 on our tight end list. Half-point PPR, he was 8th most consistent, missed a couple games. You know, it was a slow start for him to find his way. Once again, he seems to be an end-of-year sparkle, which does nothing for fantasy owners if you don't grab him off the waiver wire late in the year. He had 5 bust performances, which was the most of the top 6 performers. I still think he's so talented.
He started the year with a pretty decent game, 8.8 fantasy points for a tight end. I'll take it. Followed that up by missing those 2 games with injury. When he came back off of the bye, he had 5 points, 2 points, 2 points, 4 points. I mean, he was not even usable or serviceable at all until week 9. From week 9 on, he was one of the best tight ends in the league, and he kind of did that the year before. So the question is, this is the truth episode. What is the truth of Zach Ertz? Was it the injury that took him out? Because he looked good game 1 before he got injured, and it took him a while to get back.
The truth is that Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney got together. Carson Wentz was a brand new rookie quarterback. We loved the potential of Ertz with Bradford starting the year. The injury plus Wentz slowed him down. Look, do you like receptions? What are your thoughts on receptions?
I want a lot of them.
Do you want the tight end that had the most per game in the entire league?
Please sign me up.
That's Zach Ertz.
There you go.
Number 1 in the league in receptions per game. More than Reed, more than Pitta, more than Kelce, more than Rudolph.
And that's including those games at the start of the year that really undid
Well,
you.
here's the deal. Weeks 1 through 9 on a fantasy points per game, half-point PPR, he was 32nd.
Sounds
Weeks
about right.
1 through 9.
Not good.
10 through 16?
I went
17?
Yeah, number 1.
There you go. The number 1 tight end. So the truth about Zach Ertz?
My truth is that I want Zach Ertz on my roster if he's affordable. If he's going in the 8th, 9th round again, sure.
Yeah,
I'm fine with
I would
that.
take a flyer on that because he has the talent, I think, and he's
no
shown that
Tajay Sharp, but
that he can do it. So if he falls deep enough, Zach Ertz will be a guy I'll scoop.
All right, Cameron Brate ended up number 7 on the half-point rankings for tight end. Really a waiver wire wonder. Was one of the footy considerations, I think, for waiver wire wonder. Tied for 8th in consistency. In PPR leagues, he was 13th most consistent, so he was not extremely consistent, but we know what the tight end position looked like this year. Winston, loved him. Winston found him, he was a guy that he could catch the ball downfield. 660 yards, 8 touchdowns, only 57 receptions. So the touchdowns brought him up the ranks quite a bit. Thoughts on Cameron Brink long term?
Well, his name's Cameron Brink.
Did I say Brink?
Brink.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about something else. But Cameron Brate, it took him a couple weeks because coming into the season, if you remember the drama, that was Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Seferian-Jenkins was supposed to be the starter for that team, and then you had all that nonsense that happened with him on and off the field. Eventually, Cameron Brate became that guy. Cameron Brate eventually evolved into really the number 2 target for that team, but you had the aging Vincent Jackson who eventually went down with injury. Then you kind of have auxiliary players, and you have Adam Humphries, pronounced with an Humphries, of course, and Russell Shepard. So it was someone had to step up. Cameron Brate was the guy who stepped up into that. The question for next year, though, they have to get somebody. They have to get a wide receiver on that team besides Mike Evans.
For me, Brate is just out of consideration of being a draft pick at all next year.
Really? Oh, I'm not that low on him.
Because Brate, to me, it was a product of some of what they had available to them. You lost Sims. You lost so many weapons in that offense. And then Brate was catching a touchdown every 7 passes. I mean, I don't see that repeating itself next year.
There's a possibility that doesn't, but we have a long history of Jameis Winston. Really, his entire career from college through now, he does target the tight end frequently.
Tyler Eifert or Cameron Brate next year.
Oh, it's Eifert.
Okay. Would you take Eifert over how many of of these 7 guys we've mentioned so far? Where would Eifert fall in for you right now? So Kelce, Rudolph, Olsen, Graham, Walker, Ertz, and Eifert.
Man, Eifert's for sure in the top 5 for me, and I would take him over. It depends. The quarterback position up in Minnesota changes things a lot, but let's say if it's Bradford, I would. No, I'll still take Eifert over.
More
Rudolph.
touchdowns already in this past year, the injury-plagued year. He had more touchdowns than Olsen and Ertz.
Yeah, he's a top 3, top 4 guy for me.
We need to move on, get through more of these tight ends, unless, Jason, you had something you wanted to throw in there.
No, the only thing I was going to say was...
Good, I'm glad you don't have anything. All right. No, I'm just kidding.
I was just going to say he did fare better against bad defenses, and we should be pointing... Slightly, a point better, but we should be pointing this out because certain teams use their tight end more against, harder teams and certain, different game scripts. But I want tight ends that do better against bad defenses. Usually it's not that way, but when I'm streaming, I'm picking players who are playing against a bad defense. I want the tight ends that have a history of abusing bad defenses because that's the ones I'm picking up. So this Brate is a great streaming candidate.
You're saying you think Brate might be great?
Yeah.
Boo!
Martellus Bennett was the number 8.
How did he...
Was the number 8 tight end.
Stop stealing my shtick, fellas. These are my jokes.
We're all dads.
Martellus Bennett, number 8. Nobody ever wanted to play him.
Oh, no, you did. You just, whenever you wanted to play him, he went...
And whenever you didn't want to play him, he was great. He was better against bottom 16 defenses, but that number's skewed because you don't know, exactly which one of those games were coincided with Gronk being out. Bennett is fine. They can use 2 tight ends in New England. I don't want to play him ever. But if you need a big monster performance, you always have the potential for one of those 3 touchdown games.
Here's a pop quiz for you. All right. Martellus Bennett was 2nd in the league in terms of reception percentage. So based on his targets, he caught 75% of the passes. So efficient is what I'm saying.
He's also a free agent.
Who was the most efficient tight end, catching 78% of their targets?
I feel like it has to be Kyle Rudolph, but maybe not.
No. Ertz is 5. Jordan Reed is 4. Vernon Davis was 3. Number 1.
Oh.
It's a long shot.
Jermaine Gresham?
No.
Oh, I thought.
Doyle rules.
Oh, Doyle.
Jack Doyle, 78%.
So
catch percentage. Sorry.
Martellus Bennett.
Distraction.
I mean, you're talking like really, really bad games. Week number 1, less than 3 points. Week 3, under 3 points. Week 7, 1 point. I mean, he is similar. He's like playing it's that game of New England. It's with the running backs where, yeah, it was Blunt all this year, but going into next year, it's going to be dicey. With Bennett, if he is back in New England, you want 1 point or 15 points, he's going to be one of them.
Yeah.
One of them. Yeah, I'm staying away.
All right, here's the real question mark. We got to get to the truth of Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed is a guy that was highly drafted after finishing last year 2nd behind Gronk, had a real breakout year, super talented pass catcher, super injury prone as well. So with all of those things, put together, do you take the risk on the injury prone nature that Jordan Reed is if he is in the 4th or 5th round?
Sure, I do. Yeah, I mean, you look at this season and how do you parse out the injuries, right? And I want to look at just how Jordan Reed performed on a fantasy point per game basis. And he was basically the number 1 tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Reed fantasy points per game was basically tied with Eifert and Kelce. So, sure. Yeah, I'll take a shot, but I'm not going to take it. I might not be the 5th round.
And does that fantasy points per game include the 2 injury games? I mean,
yeah, because he left. Yeah, it would have to.
Where he scored 1 point?
Those I'll hold against him in that stat, though, because if he's prone to that, which he is, it's like LaShawn McCoy. I mean, half half of McCoy's production comes in games he limped off the field or was stretchered off.
Right.
Well, those games he should never have been in there. Thankfully, at least for the second one of those, he played him, right? I mean, a lot of people played him.
The third one of those. But I'm Jordan. I love Jordan Reed.
You're Jordan Reed?
Is
that what you're going to say?
I am.
You are Jordan Reed.
Wow, Mike.
It's like Spartacus. We are all him.
Can you give us a
Reed.
drop? Can you say, "Hi, I'm Jordan Reed, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers"?
Hey, this is Jordan Reed. I don't know what he sounds like.
Right. Probably not like
here's
that.
the last thing we say about Jordan Reed. He let owners down with his performance at the end of the year.
Yes, he certainly burned people, but
like I haven't worn my Rule 86 shirt yet because I'm not over it.
oh, I'm wearing it right now.
I know.
Honestly, I am completely on board with Jordan Reed, and I am completely on board with the Ricky Bobby method of tight ends. You're going for that first place finish because this year the top 6 were an aberration. Like usually there is better, more consistent tight ends. I want one of those. I'm going to expect that the top guys come back to form next year. But other than that, if I don't get, I'm not getting Gronk because I'm never going to pay for him. But if I don't get a Jordan Reed or Tyler Eifert at a 5th-ish round, then I'm last pick.
Sure. And here's some of the other players that finished in the top 12. Dennis Pitta, Antonio Gates, and Jason Witten were 10, 11, 12. So did we project them as top 12 tight ends? Probably Gates, probably not Pitta and Witten.
Yeah, and this is.
And I mean, we're just getting into the barfy weeds.
Yeah, much more PPR guys here with Dennis Pitta and Jason Witten. I know in standard scoring, Coby Fleener was the 12th. These are guys. We're just talking about streamers. I'm not gonna draft Dennis Pitta. I'm not gonna draft Jason Witten. I mean, if I need to because all the other guys are gone, whatever, I'll roll them out for. I'm gonna look at week 1 matchups and say I think this is a good matchup, and I'll draft that guy.
Coby Fleener played 16 games. 9 of them he didn't finish in the top 21.
Woo!
And he finished at 15. The story
That's a boom bust.
I mean, just throw him in a cup and spit one out. I mean, Gates, Witten, Ebron, Fleener, Hunter Henry, right? Hunter Henry caught a touchdown every 4 passes.
Here's the real problem with Coby Fleener. And I brought this up a minute ago saying, are they the type of guy used against bad tight end teams? Because whenever you streamed Coby Fleener, it was, he's got the good matchup, I'm going to throw him in. But Coby Fleener's splits against the top half of tight end leagues, he scored 8.9 fantasy points a game, which is fine. Against the bottom, the great matchups for him, the ones that you actually threw him into your lineup in, he averaged 4.6 fantasy points per game.
Let me put it to you this way, Jason.
He wrecked you.
My toilet would have a Coby Fleener picture above it.
Sure.
We
can put that in the bathroom.
That's the kind of impact that Coby Fleener had on my fantasy team.
We are grown-ups.
We are grown-ups. We are grown men. We are grown men. Jason disparages Devontae Adams every 30 seconds, and Greg Olsen sits upon his bathroom door.
So I want to bring up Eric Ebron a little bit, highlight him. He was in the top 10, 5 of his 13 games. He had a top 2 performance.
He was injured.
He only played 13 games, right?
Right. Yes.
That's what 5 of 13 meant.
Yeah.
But he was the non-top 21 only one time. Is Eric Ebron, I know that you guys both really liked him coming into the season. Are you holding that torch still for Eric Ebron?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Touchdowns. How many touchdowns did Eric Ebron have?
That would be uno. Yeah. One more than me.
Remember I said that Hunter Henry has averaged 1 in every 4 receptions? Eric Ebron has averaged 1 in every 60 receptions, okay? That's something that is an abnormality to me, a peculiarity.
Yeah.
I expect somebody with 61 catches to improve a 1 for 61 ratio. And he's talented, first-round talent, not a lot of weapons. Marvin Jones proved to be a jag last year. So
I wouldn't call him a jag.
What? Oh, he's a jag.
He is a jag as jag gets.
Jag guys don't have 200-yard games.
Sure they do. I'll give you an example later on today.
I can give you an example right now.
Okay.
Marvin Jones.
That's
did it.
That's quite the logical twist there.
Yeah, and
That's quite the logical twist.
And Jag
Nice
guys
analysis.
don't have
Nice
4
analysis.
touchdown games on their resume.
I would say Jag guys.
Is he elite? No. But is he a good wide receiver? I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. DeAndre Hopkins is not a Jag. He
No.
has a 200-yard game.
No.
Josh Gordon's not a Jag.
Correct.
So okay.
I don't see.
Are you looking up players who've had a 200-yard game to try to find a Jag?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Scroll till you find Marvin Jones.
Um.
Let me help you.
Yeah, there he is. There's Marvin. All right, that does it for today's show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to these Truth episodes. We have a ton of great episodes coming up. We'll navigate the free agent market. We'll navigate the coaching changes.
Coaching changes is an episode you do not want to miss. Those things factor in massively for fantasy football.
I'm going to commit to this episode. We're going to do an episode of Things to Remember for 2017.
Yes.
I'm going to commit to an episode that we'll call 10 or 15 or 20 questions. We're going to identify some of the biggest questions of the offseason, answer them on the show. These are the shows that, look, I love when the season's going on, but I love the offseason too. This is why we're a year-round show, because these debates, they get deep.
You know what I was thinking?
I mean, the grammar's off, but the debates are deep.
I was riding shotgun in Mike's vehicle, and he's got the Sirius XM, and sometimes when you're driving, it was nice to be able to throw on the fantasy sports channel, and it's like, but they don't talk football now.
Right.
That's just dumb. I don't want anything else. I just want football.
That's right.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
For you and for me.
Football is primed to be one of the top, most popular sports in the United States.
Yeah,
Check
I think
out-
it's coming.
FantasyJocks.com. The promo code is footballers. Get your trophies.
Check out jointhefoot.com. Join our community.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.